Tsundoku, noun. Language of origin, Japanese. Meaning, the act of acquiring books but allowing them to pile up unread.
In 1991, the streets ran red with the bloody bare knuckles of Adam, Axel, and Blaze. These three young police officers were out to take down the syndicate run by Mr. X, but would create a franchise with 2 sequels in the 90s, and then silence. My name is Chad Bonnet, and this is D-Pads and DLC, a look at retro and retro-inspired games. Nearly 30 years from the launch of the franchise, Streets of Rage has been reinvigorated for the modern generation of gamers. But the beat-em-up genre effectively disappeared with the 21st century. Is it time to return to the streets? Or is this one crime alley you should avoid? We're time trip dreaming through the Tsundoku Zone and checking out Streets of Rage 4.
Comics, games, animation, and a variety of henshin credible superhero shows from Japan. Chad Bonnet guides you through the Tsundoku Zone.
Fall in love with the art, the characters off of these Nintendo carts, the 2D beauties.
As a person who grew up on the Super Nintendo side of the 20th century console wars, Final Fight was my game of choice, and one of the first titles I received on the console. When you're 7, you don't know that this is Missing Guy, or a 2-player mode, or is heavily tweaked from the Japanese version. It was a fun game from Capcom, followed by 2 sequels. In a parallel world that might as well have been its own country, Sega released Streets of Rage, their answer to the Final Fight franchise. The Super Nintendo had only 2 characters with a single-player mode, so Sega upped the ante with 3 characters in a 2-player mode. Final Fight had a jump and an attack, Streets of Rage added a special move. Bare Knuckle, as it was known in Japan, threw down the blood-soaked glove and quickly followed it up with 2 sequels, rapidly expanding on the world, cast, and gameplay. Branching paths, hidden characters, and more expanded on the franchise until the Saturn came out and the streets went quiet. After a few missteps and homages, the franchise has found 3 caretakers to bring it into the 2020s, .mu, Lizard Cube, and Guard Crush Games. To revive the franchise, the title has reinvented itself with modern trappings. There are great things being done with 3D graphics in 2D space. Look at Dragon Ball FighterZ for aspirations. What the franchise has done is gone back to the traditional comic-styled art. Every frame, background, and part of this new world looks like a comic book come to life, minus a few intentional exceptions. Reminiscent of Street Fighter II Turbo HD Remix, this leads to some beautiful art, when paused. Movement is stilted, but understandable given the situation. There's a brand new soundtrack, and for Streets of Rage fans, that means Yuzo Koshiro is on their radar. While he contributes to some new tracks, players will be happy to know that you can actually turn on the original soundtrack with a swap in the menu. All this is simply set dressing. The biggest question you have is, how does the game play? Should this franchise have remained buried, or is this a worthy revival?
Always smoke and cry, mourning the victims regardless of the side. A battle that seems to have no end.
Reviving the cast and advancing the story 10 years, Axel and Blaze are joined by Floyd and Cherry. Floyd, effectively Dwayne Johnson mixed with Jax, is the big bruiser of the title, adding some rocket fist attacks. Cherry, daughter of the original title's Adam, is on the other end of the spectrum, focusing on speed and a rocking guitar for up-close attacks. Axel and Blaze have aged to their 30s, but haven't lost step with their younger cohorts. Factor in Adam, soon unlocked within the first few stages of story mode, and you have 5 fully modernized characters, with a classic gameplay style. Nothing much in the title has taken modern gameplay cues, with the fighting system largely simplified to jump, attack, and a limited number of consumable super moves. Special attacks come with a gamble. They use up some of your life bar, but you can regain that health if you take down enough enemies without being hit. While the gameplay is limited in button bandwidth to the point that you can actually set Genesis-style controls through the menu, the actual fighting is supremely rewarding. Nothing beats throwing an opponent into another opponent, tossing a pipe at an enemy and catching it on the rebound, or simply smashing 2 heads into one another. When you've got that perfect scenario when you're performing a combo on multiple people at once and see that combo counter rise, you see something that hasn't been handled in mainstream games in years, largely limited to these revival titles. The game does feature local 4-person multiplayer, an aspect I wasn't able to try with, well, Pandemic. Online multiplayer is limited to you and one extra, but it's relatively simple to hop into a game or host one. Problematically, once you use up your lives, you're stuck waiting on the other person to play. If you're the host, that means you're fighting alone until you beat the stage or the player invariably drops out of the match from boredom. When you get in a good routine though, you'll find that help useful to beat the game. I wouldn't have been able to beat the game on normal without the help of some online strangers.
I am not a criminal, yet I get treated like one. I am not a criminal, yet I get treated like one.
The game, on one playthrough, is difficult on normal, but not impossible. Working with a co-op partner, online or in person, will definitely ease things. If you can't or don't want to, there is an assistance functionality where you can sacrifice some points for lives and special attacks, but that means you won't be unlocking the number of extra characters anytime soon. Notably, the game features 12 retro-styled characters, largely ripped from the game they came from. That means that, for example, you can play as Axel or Blaze as they're handled in any of the previous titles. That means that some characters outright not upgraded for the game, such as Skate or Dr. Zahn, get some time to shine, but it also means that characters such as Max and Shiva, who exist as boss fighters in this game, are locked behind their 16-bit visages. These do connect to a certain secret in the game that's worth a laugh, but aren't expanded enough to fully explore. This is possibly the biggest fault of the game, limitations imposed on the player. While nobody would expect all characters to be upgraded, there's a missed opportunity that all the boss characters are just that. While featuring a diverse moveset beyond standard grunts, and the two aforementioned having a history of being playable, it would have been great to unlock them in turn. Additional missed opportunities include the fact that the game is missing branching paths or any sort of player agency. You never get to make a decision other than move right and attack. While locking the bonus characters behind points, there'd be more encouragement for replay if you were able to upgrade your character. Maybe better playing means less cooldown after using special attacks, or starting a level with more supers. If anything, having palette swaps of characters would at least get Blaze back in her silver outfit. As it stands, the villains have more variety than our main cast. The game does feature extras beyond the main game, but none are nearly as fleshed out. There's character designs and artwork to view, revealing alternate takes and designs. An arcade mode means a more classical playthrough and not dependent on save states. Boss Rush has you fight all the bosses back to back without reprieve, and Battle Mode's return lets characters focus on fighting each other, but that doesn't mean others won't storm the stage to distract you.
Probably hate my past state poetry, but it's only here I can speak soulfully. I call you on.
Streets of Rage 4 does a great job at making a new bare-knuckle title for 2020, and it's a great value if you play it on Xbox Game Pass, available at launch. With all the visual advancements, it's a shame the game didn't make any gameplay improvements. It's a solid game, but in a world where player agency has evolved beyond choosing who to fight on the screen, we're missing out on such things as player customization and branching paths. But it feels like we're missing out on things that could have truly restarted the franchise. As it stands, the streets are stagnant, but sometimes it's good to just go back home with fresh eyes. My name is Chad Bonin, and I'll see you in the stacks.